I was watching a TV show that debuted in the 90s, and in that show, they show an interracial relationship, which is very progressive considering the fact that, as I said, this episode aired in the 90s. And even today, people still have incredibly racist attitudes, such as were once portrayed in this episode that I watched. Well, a girl was asking another girl, "Are you African American?" "No." "Why?" "Then why were you dating one?" And I'm just like, I just had to pause the video and be like, wow. The worst part about that is that so many people still have that same idea. See, racism isn't necessarily hating one race or the other. See, racism is actually generally just loving your own race up and thinking it's superior to all others. And there's nothing wrong with having pride in your heritage. But if you look at the past, like white people, they just hated everybody, even other white people. Like if you want a British Anglo-Saxon, then your life was pretty much fucked. They treated the Irish and the what was that other one? Was it Scottish? Whatever. They treated those people like shit, even though I don't know when the UK officially formed, but that's all part of the same thing now. And yet they're all from the same little island chain, and they treated them like shit as well. Like you could see drawings back in the Revolutionary days or whatever, when America was first formed. They would draw Irish people as like drunken monkeys and shit. I mean, they just hated anyone who wasn't British. They hated the Germans, who are white. They hated the French, who are white. At least from my perspective, these are all Caucasian cultures, and yet they weren't British though, so you're not really white. You're not pure enough. And that's where it is. The British people, they just fucking hated everybody. And by British people, I mean those of British descent who ended up settling in America and then turning on their own British people. They just hated everybody. They hated the British, they hated the French, they hated, of course, blacks, Asians, Hispanics. They just hated everybody. And so much of that attitude is just still instilled in us very naturally. A lot of people nowadays, I'm still noticing, have such a stick-to-your-own type of mentality. It's not quite as blatant as what it has been in previous societies, but you'll still notice it. A lot of people have criticized me throughout my life because I don't have a lot of black friends. There are very few black people who I actually talk to on a regular basis at any point in my life. I've never actually dated a black girl. I've never even met a black girl I was actually interested in dating at all. And it's not because I go out of my way to spend more time around white people and other cultures. I'm not a self-hating black person. It's just that, where I grew up, a lot of the black people they resemble a lot of those black stereotypes that you see throughout mass media. And it's not even their fault completely. Growing up in a poor neighborhood and like those rappers as your only role models and stuff. I mean, it's kind of something that happens. I was lucky that I at least started my life, in the suburbs in a big old 2-story house, growing up with watching Seventh Heaven. So like during those formative years, I had a different set of upbringing, and then in middle school I moved to a trailer park, and then suddenly I was introduced to this whole world, and I decided almost immediately that I did not like it. Thankfully I was a weirdo who didn't fit in. Otherwise, who knows what I'd be right now, where my life would have gone. But yeah, it's just I don't go out of my way not to be friends with black people, and I don't go out of my way to be friends with white people. It's just that for some reason, I think just because so many people, at least in the neighborhoods that I've come from, so many black people tend to be those stereotypical black people that you see in media. And that's just not the kind of personality I don't want to be around. And it doesn't matter, because I know a lot of white people with that same personality. I don't hang out with them either. And I know a lot of black people who don't resemble any of those stereotypes at all. And I love hanging out with them. It's just, it's all about the type of person you are. There are black people I will hang out with and black people I won't hang out with. There are white people I will hang out with and white people I won't hang out with. There are a lot of white people who I've met in my life who only want to hang out with me because I'm black and they want to be cool. And those are the type of white people I go out of my way to avoid. It's just, and there are a lot of black people who they don't even like me. They just want to keep me around as their friend because of that whole, like I said, stick to your own mentality. And those are the kind of black people I usually don't want to be around. And as far as dating goes, well, like most of the black chicks, they just too damn ghetto for me. I mean, that's just how it is. I like quiet, more reserved people. I mean, you can't be afraid to speak your own mind. At the same time, you can't be afraid to shut the fuck up every now and then. Cause there are some people who just never stop running their goddamn mouths. I'm just saying. And I'm not saying that you have to be just quiet, seen and not heard, just pretty face with no brain in your head. I don't want that either. But just goddamn, you don't have to say something every damn second of every fucking day. And you ain't gotta be that damn loud either. I mean, shit. I mean, there's no reason for your voice to reach such an immense volume. And that's just how it's been. It's not that I refuse to date a black girl, it's just that I've never met a black girl who I thought was worth dating. I've met one or two, but I never had, they were good friends of mine who already were in long-term relationships, and by the time they got to a point where they were someone I could consider dateable, I could not consider them dateable because I already considered them friends. And so that's two. That's like two black girls of all the, at least a few hundreds that I've met, that I ever thought were not horrible people. And by horrible people, I don't mean like, oh, you're a horrible human being, you disgust me. Just like, oh, you're a horrible person, I want nothing to do with you. You're just not the kind of person I want to spend any amount of time with. And so that's why it just happened naturally that I end up, somehow spending the majority of my time around people. The majority of them are either Caucasian or some sort of mixed race. I mean, I live in Texas, and we're like 75% of the population is at least partially Hispanic, it's just, the point I'm trying to make is that there are so many little forms of racism that people just don't even notice just on a daily basis, and it's a mentality that's in your mind. It's been ingrained in us throughout society. And I honestly don't care. People call me racist because I don't go out of my way to be around black people. But I honestly just don't care either way. I judge you based 100% on the person that you are. And, there are a lot of people who do act that same way. But there are also a lot more people that just don't. I just felt like ranting.